Welcome to Edged Mindset. I am your host, Carter. Got another video for you. We are going to be taking a look at something rare for this channel. We're going to be looking at a Microtech. I don't often feature these on... No, I'm kidding. My whole channel is practically Microtech. Like, I could change the name of the channel to Microtech Mindset, and I think it would make more sense. We're going to be taking a look at the Ultratech 2 from their signature line from Microtech. I'll be honest, this signature line I think is the best thing that they've ever came up with. Well, ever. That's a bold statement, but signature line is amazing. It really, and I've said this before, man, it bridges the gap between the production and the custom in a very, very good way. In fact, there's some signature line knives that I'm like, that's better than what you get in the custom line at like, I don't know, 30% of the cost. I don't know math. I failed math, but a lot cheaper. And this is no exception. Look how bold this is. Look how different this is. This is not your mother's Ultratech. Does your mom carry an Ultratech? She should. It's a good knife for that. This is a good mother's knife. I'll say that right now. No, this is an excellent EDC, OTF in my opinion. This is the smallest knife that I think I would ever really want to carry. Your results will vary. Pretty big guy. I'm tall. I'm heavy. Got big hands. So anything smaller than this, I would really struggle with manipulating. Even the UTX 85, I think is just too small for me. But if you are a smaller person, just replace Ultratech with UTX 85 and it'll still translate, right? That's the beauty of this line is they got three different sizes. UTX 70, right? 85 and then the full size. And it's literally the 85 is 85% the size of this and the 70 is 70% the size of this. 70 is quite small, but for some people, it makes sense. You know, you can throw it in your little fifth pocket in your jeans and it'll fit in there and still blade length, very serviceable. So this is the only Ultratech I have right now. I kind of ignore the line because I like the big boys, generally speaking. Take that as you will. I like the bigger knives, and they're just kind of more impressive to me, but I came across this I came across this Ultratech 2 signature line and fell in love. I love the green. I love the change in the handle. I really like this knife. So what are we looking at? What is it? 3.5. We'll call it 3.5. Just under 3.5 inch blade. Overall length, not including the glass breaker, is about 8 inches. You throw the glass breaker on there, it's about 8.25-ish. So not a huge knife by any means, but it does have some good length to it. Let's compare it to a Paramilitary 2. It's about the same length. So it's about that same length, but it's lighter, and it's thinner, and it's not as wide, and it's not as good at cutting either. But we'll get to that in a minute. That's kind of up to you to decide. This particular blade shape is not a slicer-style blade shape. You can get this in a single edge, which is better, but still, it's pretty narrow blade. So this really isn't going to be a huge slicer. This is more of a utilitarian kind of general purpose carry for all things, cutting string, packages, stuff like that, and potentially defensive. You know, have something on hand that's unobtrusive, lightweight, but can still kind of help you defend yourself if needed. So let's get a weight on this, and I want to compare it to the PM2, Paramilitary 2. So very lightweight, 3.2 ounces. I believe this is lighter than the standard Ultratech by a little bit, just because it has more milling on the outside here. You can see there's actually some depth to this milling. You've got contouring, milling lines on the side here. So they've reduced the already light aluminum even further. Paramilitary 2, 3.8. Okay, I am just kind of contradicting myself. I thought this was considerably lighter. It's only a tad bit lighter than the Paramilitary 2. That's very interesting. Good to know. For some reason, maybe it's the balance of this. I don't know. This feels super light in hand. This feels heavier. I don't know. Must be the way that the weight is distributed. But, I mean, this is lighter, right? We just saw it's lighter, but I thought it was more than a fraction of an ounce lighter. I thought it was considerably lighter, but Anyways, so here, let's do this, right? So I avoided Ultratechs for two reasons. The aforementioned size reason. They're just a little too small for what I tend to gravitate towards, even though the size is, like I said, really, really good for carrying. The other reason is I owned one back in the day, and I had trouble with deployment. It was really hard to deploy. The switch was very stiff, and it was difficult for me to grip and get good leverage, and so I didn't really like it. So one thing I've mentioned before on Microtechs is I have a sneaking suspicion, and I've been getting a lot of Microtechs, I've been handling a lot of Microtechs, that they've reduced the spring weight in the knives. They're not as robust as they used to be. I remember the Ultratech I had maybe 10 years ago was very difficult for me to deploy. Now, it's also possible that I had little boy hands and now I have big man hands. I don't think that's the case. I think they have reduced the spring weight in these knives in the last couple of years due to, I believe, customer demand, right? That's been a complaint with these for a while, is that they're just too difficult to deploy. And other knives are producing OTFs that are a little easier to manipulate and easier on the hand. Now, there's pros and cons to that. The difficulty of deployment is directly proportionate to the amount of spring tension pushing and pulling the blade out, which means stronger the deployment, the more likely it is to overcome debris and fire successfully. Downside to that, other than it being more difficult to deploy, is that it can be a little harder on the internals, right? The harder this blade is slamming up and the sears are catching the blade, hitting aluminum, you know, the more likely mechanism wear is to occur. So it's a give and take, but I prefer it a little bit lighter like this because I don't think the benefit you get from the heavier spring outweighs the other factors. Now, originally people said that the spring weight was due to Microtech wanting to avoid issues, legal issues with accidental deployments. Maybe. I don't see that being the case just because even the lightest double action OTF, there's a huge barrier to get it to accidentally deploy. It's just not gonna deploy accidentally. So then there's that. So we've got beautiful green anodized, milled out aluminum scales right there. Looks really nice. This is the apocalyptic finish, not the bronzed apocalyptic, just the regular apocalyptic. You've got the signature right there. This one came out of 2022. Serial number like 1168 or something. Yeah, 1168. Glass breaker, lanyard hole, all the standard stuff. You've got a nice matte finish on all the hardware. On the slider, it's got the new X-style slider on here. This one has the full serrations, so you've got a plain edge for slicing, and then you've got serrations for serrating. Apocalyptic finish here, which is really, apocalyptic is kind of like equivalent to a light acid wash with a stone wash on it. Some people say it's an aggressive stone wash. It's not true. If you stone wash something, it can only be so aggressive. Like you stone wash it and then you hit a peak where it just can't be stone washed anymore. This actually has a darkened film over it, or a darkened finish, and then it's stone washed on top of it, which gives more contrast. But it's kind of a light acid wash thing. And I don't think it's actually acid washed. I think they heat it up a certain way to kind of create a scale on it, and then they stone wash it and do the flats would be my guess, but could be wrong on that. So why is this such a good carry knife? It's light, you've got a lot of blade to work with, but it's very narrow. Like, man, this thing, even though it's maybe a little longer than what you would consider a good EDC knife, this thing just disappears in your pocket. Like, you throw this in there, it's like there's nothing there, at least in my experience, compared to other knives that I carry. What's a good comparison? Let's take this automatic, this Gerber, this big boy Gerber right here. You've got almost as long of a blade, almost as long overall, but just look at the difference. Like, just so carryable, so lightweight, so nimble compared to a lot of knives with the same length. Great EDC choice. I really want to expand my Ultratech collection now because I have a new appreciation for this particular knife, and which is strange because this is the flagship Microtech, right? This is the knife that built Microtech and their #1 selling knife, and yet it's the one that I'm in the past have been least likely to get. This one opens effortlessly. So easy to deploy this. So the other thing I wanted to mention, you do have a little bit of button wobble, although it's less than a lot. So if you shake it, you don't hear it, probably because it's a smaller button and has less mass. In the closed position, it really doesn't move hardly at all. This thing does not rattle. This one feels, and it could just be this particular model, but this feels more solid than a lot of other Microtechs that I have handled, especially when it comes to blade play. Like, there is such little, I mean, let's see if you can even, can you see that? I mean, I can feel it, especially this way. I mean, there's nothing. This is the least amount of blade play other than my deadlock of any OTF I've ever held in my whole life. There is nothing. Next in line is the Dirac Delta. That has very little blade play, a little bit more than this. And then the Combat Trudon and the Scarab is quite bad for blade play. It doesn't bother me. I'm used to it, but I know a lot of people don't like that. This one, and like I said, this is the only Ultratech I've handled in a decade. So I don't know if this is par for new Microtechs and that's how they are, or if it's this particular one, but there is like as little blade play as you could ever possibly have without some sort of deadlock-like mechanism in there. So very impressed with this knife. Love it, absolutely love it. I'm going to be getting some more Ultratechs in the future, I think. I like this one so much. Signature line, Ultratech 2, hit it out of the park. This thing's awesome. All right, guys, that's it. I'm done. I'm done talking. You guys take it easy. Have a good day. I'll see you next time.